It's my pleasure to welcome Mr. Johann Jansen van Rensburg. He's the Director for Sub-Saharan Africa at NOV. Please help me welcome him with a round of applause.
Okay, cool. Well, thanks for the nice introduction. Just repeat, I'm Johann Jansen for Rensburg. I'm the Director for Sub-Saharan Africa at NOV Process Systems. And what I would like to share with you today is how the NOV integrated ecosystem changed how we approach marginal field developments today. It's not just theory, it's a practical integrated solution designed to add value, right, to otherwise stranded reserves. So first of all, just to ground the discussion, I mean, looking at the market today, there are several challenges that marginal field developments or developing the fields face. And we've categorized them into four areas, right? The first one is cost versus reserves. And I think this speaks for itself that sometimes it's viewed as too much investment for the little reserves that we're trying to recover. Then there's technical complexity. You know, talking about conventional infrastructure, we're actually taking stuff which is designed for 3,000 meter water depth, and we're trying to do the same for shallow water, 180, 50 meter water depth. Then extend the timelines. With marginal fields, you want to get to production as quick as possible. You can't afford an extended timeline with delays. Reason being is that eats into your net present value, and it just delays or discourages FIDs. And then fragmented vendor interfaces. We all know complicated offshore projects. You've got a lot of vendors, right? But we need to look into that because it's working against all the previous stuff that we're looking into. So by looking at this, the ultimate goal is to basically look at a 20 to 30% cost reduction across the whole development. So with this in mind, we looked into how can we frame this, you know, to look at the various stages of the development. And we came up with a graph like this, which is first frame, forge, and flow. Now, frame is all about where we engineer the blueprint for the development and doing the planning as well. Forge is where we build and we execute. And then the flow side is where we get into production. It's all about production on the flow side. But for us, you can't view these three individually. You need to look at them because they all support one and the other. The decisions you make in the one has the potential to influence the other, and so forth and so forth. So taking a deeper dive in some of these pillars, right? Taking a look at frame. Now, framing for us is all about early engagement and digital front loading. So the earlier we can have the discussion, the earlier we can start looking at multiple design scenarios. We can have a look at the right sizing of equipment. You know, we can look at lead times. Everything is structured in a way to enable quicker decision making. So get to FID in a lot quicker. So in short, it's taking a development and, you know, changing it to a more predictable process rather than a game, right? So we're trying to lock in everything during this framing process. And we even go so far as to look at execution model, try and make decisions on where we're going to fabricate, who we're going to fabricate, who we're going to partner with. So we don't have to do that during execution phase because that is late changes in the process and that will change the cost profile. So we're trying to also look at potential bottlenecks and address that. Yeah? Before you start cutting steel, make sure you have the proper blueprint. Then some of the outcomes related to one of the first slides on the problems we see is generally we see fewer design loops. Because we flag some of the potential challenges, we can optimize the risk. Hence, we have quicker FID. Right. So that is the potential that this model offers. Does it always work? We have our challenges because you get late changes, late specification. But that's why we keep emphasizing that early engagement is key, right? Don't involve companies like NOV, technology vendors, OEMs during the execution phase. Get them in front of the process, because that's where you can have key decisions that you can make that will definitely influence how you develop further. Because let's be honest, a lot of companies, engineering companies, they do the front end engineering, but they're not part of the execution. Once it gets to execution, someone else picks it up. And then you get onto operation and someone else tends to do that. Right? What we do is NOV has the continuity from start right to the end. So we're more than just a technology vendor. We become a partner, and we invest in that as well. Then if you look at the second pillar, which is Forge, and as I said, it's all about unified build and delivery under one roof. Now, we are fortunate enough that we have our own manufacturing facilities, but we also have key partnership across the world, people that we can work with on a project by project basis. And the essence of Forge is to ensure that there's no delays. We want to reduce supply chain interaction. So the client deals with us and we sort out the rest, right? We minimize the risk of too many handoffs. That's why a lot of these decisions that impacts Forge, we normally make during the framing process. So a lot of these things, it's not just, we just don't think process-wise, we also think execution during that frame process. But Forge is all about the execution and how we can make sure that we meet the deadlines and minimize the cost. And one of the things that enables us to do that is that, you know, our wide portfolio of proprietary technologies that we have. I believe we have the majority of the key technologies that is needed to make this into a success. And once you have that technologies, that enables you to then work with the client, look at standardization, optimization. Now, we can do that only if there's a two-way information sharing. We can suggest stuff, but the client needs to tell us what they need as well. So in the end, we come to an agreement, and especially if you've got various marginal fields you want to develop, we can even look at, okay, how can we standardize certain elements as far as specifications as well, which is very key, and then transfer that to the next field. So that, again, impacts the following development. But I'm going to keep on repeating it. You can only do that when we're involved from the early phase. Right? You can't do that at a later stage. And we can help you even come up with your topside architecture for phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, phase 4. Just so you have the concepts already laid out, and you don't have to start with a blank envelope or a blank piece of paper each and every time. So it's all how we can standardize. And, you know, I'd like to go even a step further to say that we're working towards something which I'm not going to say you can buy off the shelf, but it's going to be very easy to configure that in a reasonably quick way. There will be certain elements that are going to be standard. We want to sit around with the industry to look at specifications. Is it project by project, or for marginal fields, can we standardize certain specifications across so we don't have to redevelop each and every time, to reassess specifications? By doing that, we can align supply chains so they know there's not going to be any changes in the future. So we can start ordering on time. So it's all those things. You can see there's a lot of things that we need to keep in mind. But as I mentioned in the beginning, it's a structured process. So we follow a process to get from A to B to Z with us. So some of the outcomes of this is accelerated delivery times, lower CapEx, and simplified interfaces. And I think they all speak for themselves that these are the key ones, especially in execution, where you see things tend to go wrong. You know, halfway through the project execution, there's delays. Clients don't want that. You know, you want to lower CapEx rather than adding additional cost during the execution. And then simply, you know, just make the communication easier. Be responsive and ensure that, you know, let's say, for instance, we're designing topsides, process units, etc. You know, we've even discussed that we are willing to put certain engineers close to the customer so we can have these 1, 2, 3, 4 days design sprints, you know, where you just NJ mentioned it this morning, one of the speakers, lock someone in the room and you don't come out until you have a solution, right? That's sometimes that we need to do because it's all for the better of the project. And so, and let's be honest, I'm a mechanical engineer, but that's one of the things that process engineers, it's always different. Right? So sometimes you need to force them to think different as well. And that's a way to get that. And then we can start standardizing, right? So then we go into the last and probably one of the most important ones is the flow. And as I said, it's all about maximizing production, extending life, and ensure the integrity. So we are looking at digital twins. All these buzzwords you hear these days. We look at maintenance programs, preventive maintenance, spare parts. We try and build that all into the whole a model to make sure that decisions are made, according to a set design process, and clients are not caught by surprise. Now, how do we do this? Because you can do it manually, but we have a digital platform. And in this case, this is an example of available by NOV that we have, which is a digital platform that cuts across all the various phases in the development of such a field or a project, starting with early engagement. And as I said, the whole framing is all about early engagement and front-end digital loading. Now, there you can see we include all of this during the framing process. We don't put digital at the back end. We include it from the start because it influences the decision making. But it's everything from VR training. I mean, you can read here. There's a lot of stuff. Knowledge transfer. It's predictive maintenance, spare parts, deployment. When do we need engineers to go offshore? It's all built in that model, which then results in a maximum availability, extended lifestyle, and optimize OPEX. And this is an important. Everyone is talking about digital, and for us, this is one of the most important parts in a marginal field development, which we think that if implemented the right way, this has the potential of saving even more money during operational execution. So some of the outcomes, there's higher uptime and then availability, so less sleepless nights for the operators, faster stabilization and ramp up. So, if you want to ramp up production, it's easier to assess what needs to be done to be able to attend to the or cater for the new flows that's coming in, especially when you have tiebacks, because you've got a digital twin. You can simulate a lot of things. Your operators, people are trained, so they can deal with all the upset conditions and able to then adjust the system. And then assured integrity and life extension, which is as important. Is to make sure that the asset is maintained, and then just simply optimize OPEX, right? So look at Big Mac facility or chemical usage is to optimize chemical use. Then if we just look at those three, then frame, forge, and flow, total economics over the development and the field, life of field, we're looking at reduced OPEX, shorter lead times, your viability achievement, so cost targets, right? That's a key for marginal fields. Everything we hear is all about, how much it's going to cost, because, no one wants to invest. Stronger performance. And one thing I actually could have added right in the beginning to those three pillars are probably the financial side as well. We starting to get more questions, and we discussed yesterday in a meeting, that we are willing to look or work with our partners, to work towards financial models that we could potentially offer to clients to help them develop the project. Hence, we have some skin in the game, okay? And let's be honest, we will be looking for returns as well, but it's all to get the project off the ground. That's what it is. So, we can't just walk away each time and say, okay, but this is what you get. So sort of, we'd like to be proactive, think outside the box, and look at ways to support the clients to develop these marginal fields or shallow water fields. So I talked a lot about the concept, the principle, the process, and the methodology behind this all. But what about the technology or the equipment? Now, I don't want to have a huge slide with everything on it. And sorry, Marian, I left out APL, right, which is the mooring systems and offloading for FPSOs. But it's quite big, so I couldn't fit it in, right? But I tried to cover everything that we have. And as you can see, from subsea structures, flexible pipes, we've got conductor platforms with Excel systems, we've got the MOPUs, which new build or conversions. And then we have all of the topsides availability, especially process equipment. So that for us makes it easier to then make a decision. What's the partial processing we're going to do on a conductor platform? What do we need to put on a MOPU? What's the extent of the conversions that you need to do for an FPSO, for instance? And again, early engagement is all about being part of this complex or the field development, not only looking at one part of a MOPU of just the conductor platform, because as I said, we can make decisions on the conductor platform for now and for the future that will positively impact what you do on the MOPU and subsequently on the FPSO and vice versa. So we see it as an integrated option. And the next future will be is that we have going to MOPUs that we identify 2 types of jackups, not 3, 4, 5, just 2, and we standardize around us. Right? What's the maximum topside you can put on there? And then start looking at what the development needs to look for. Right? So that is what we're trying to do. And I touched on the digital side, where available is a very niche part specifically for one of the products. But our Max TM backbone, it's almost like Intel inside, if you want to call it that. It's all about connecting these things to each other. So again, a vision, and it's probably, I don't think it's too far-fetched, is that all the processing units, all the equipment on these various things, they speak to each other. So you can assess. So if there's an upset on your wallet platform, you can immediately address that before it possibly go to your MOPU, right? And on marginal fields, we see it's either MOPU, FPSO, or we also see hybrid solutions, right? Where depending on the size of the field or the reservoir, that will decide the actual installation that you put there. So this is what we have. This is what we do. It's all individual products at the moment, product lines. Phase 2 is now come up with a more standardized approach. So it gives me a reason to come back here next year and present the full standardized suite, right? But anyway, it's just show you we have everything under one roof. And if we don't have it, we partner with someone that can bring it. But we don't want to leave it to the client to sort out. Come to us, speak to us, tell us what you need, and we'll fix it. Right? Should become a new motto, we fix it. So just to close off, right? Looking at the different areas, our main focus is to become a partner to our clients. Right? We want to partner, we want to develop so we can help you create value through your stranded fields. Speak to us. We can help you unlock that with making smart decisions. And whether it's a tieback, whether it's a MOPU or minimal conductor platform or an FPSO or a combination of these, right? We have the abilities, the capabilities, the partners to be able to help you develop this. That's what we can do by following our frame, forge, and flow model. We don't want to step in here. We can, right? If you've got existing stuff and you say, I need digital support, we can come in with flow and see what we can do. We can come in at a later stage at delivery or execution, and we can support you. We know that there's certain companies that is a different operating way of operation. They tend to work with others to develop that, and then they go to OEMs or technology companies to develop. But we also know that there's the smaller players that are looking for companies that can step up and take on more than what they currently do. And that's typically what we do. And that's why we've developed this model to be able, to basically do the frame, the blueprint of the field, then going into the execution and ultimately going into operations. Right. So this is in a nutshell the idea of the marginal fields. Right? I didn't go into a lot of technical detail and design criteria, etc., because we want to encourage discussion, right? We can put something on here which is not specific to a customer need. So if you need more information, if you want to discuss with me or the rest of the team, or more detailed technical details on with your technical teams, I would suggest, just approach me. We can set up a technical session. We can make sure that the right people are there, and it's not going to be sales talk. It's going to be looking at the issues. It's going to be looking at what's the best design we can offer, the best service we can offer you guys to get you through the stages in your project. And everything, again, as I said, the whole marginal field thing is about reducing cost and delivery times. That's what it's about. Okay? And for that, you need a different mindset. You need to think outside the box. You can't use the standard way the oil fields has been developed over the years. So I've seen I've actually made up some time, right? So I don't know if there's any. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Johann. I'm not sure if there is any question. Do we have questions from the audience? Yes.
Lafoto represents Akata Energy and Independence. Thanks for your lovely presentation. It resonates with a lot of independents operating out of Africa. I don't know if you can still get a slide up on the screen. So if you go to the first slide, that speaks a lot to areas I would like to talk about. We can take the rest off. Yes.
This one?
Good. So the very first one there is the high cost and reserves. And you mentioned marginal fields.
Yeah.
Now, when you're talking about marginal fields, what type of size in terms of reserve and production will you be looking at in terms of class?
In terms of?
Class of reserves, proven reserves.
We haven't really identified a single size of reserve.
Okay.
To be honest, I'm not going to try and think a number here. For us, it's marginal fields, shallow water is up to 150-meter water depth. And it's up to the client to tell us, okay, how big of a development that is. And we can work around that because we've got configurable models. It's not only standardized, but it's configurable as well. So we can scale up and scale down as well.
Yeah. And the second one is a 22, more of 68 million barrels, but it requires more investment. You have 2 wells to be drilled and all that. So engaging your team early and looking at the possibilities of collaboration and cost efficiency. If it's possible, I want to guarantee we have a model to work with.
Just to answer your question, and especially on the field size, this for us is still relatively new. We're going into the market now with this. Okay. So we rely on the industry to give us feedback. That's a way for us to test this. And 9 out of 10 times, I think we're going to land at a sweet spot that we say, okay, let's just reduce. It's best to focus on this area. But we want to keep it open because there's a lot of other stuff that we can do that potentially could enable you to move forward. Although you think, well, I don't think it's going to be, you need to be really lean. We like to be challenged as well. Okay. So if we need to adjust this model to something which needs to be even more leaner and there's a market for it, then we'll definitely look into it. But this is the base. This is where we start from, and now we can scale up or scale down.
Thanks, Jonathan, for that. And lastly would be, what has been your team's experience based around Niger Delta, especially Nigeria?
Niger Delta?
Nigeria.
Well, in Nigeria, a lot. We're working a lot, and I've got a colleague who's quite active in Nigeria, David. So I would suggest speaking to him because we're currently working on a couple of projects. We have a partner, someone that we work with in NES and others, right? So we're looking at expanding. good customer of ours, is first E&P as well. So we're very much engaged.
All right.
Thank you.
Thanks. I guess we'll definitely try to reach out to you and
Yes.
set up a meeting. No?
Please do. Please do.
Thank you. Thank you.